I'm Emma, 32, and I was just 20 when my father died. A college student with no money, no plan, and 3 younger brothers suddenly dependent on me. A few days later, my uncles showed up, claiming there was no will and taking everything. But they underestimated me. What happened next forced me to grow up overnight and fight like hell. 12 years later, they faced me in court, when the truth about the 120 million they stole came to light. Before I tell you what happened next, drop a comment with where you're watching from, and hit like if you believe families should protect, not betray. I'm sitting in my office overlooking Manhattan, but when I close my eyes, I can still smell the mildew from that basement apartment in Brooklyn where I raised my 3 brothers after our world fell apart. People always ask me how I did it, how I kept us together when everything seemed hopeless. The truth is, I almost didn't. There were nights I cried myself to sleep wondering if we'd make it to the next month. But I made a promise to those boys, and I've never broken a promise in my life. Let me start from the beginning. When my father, Michael Williams, passed away from a sudden stroke, he was only 45. Strong as an oak tree one day, gone the next. Dad had always been my hero, a man who built a tech company from nothing, who loved his family fiercely, and who taught me that integrity was worth more than gold. My biological mother, Sarah, had passed away from cancer when I was 8 years old. I barely remember her, but Dad kept her memory alive through stories and photographs. 2 years after Mom died, Dad married Jennifer, a sweet nurse who never tried to replace my mother but loved me like I was her own blood. Jennifer gave birth to 3 boys, Tyler, Mason, and Logan. Tyler was 16 when Dad died, quiet, thoughtful, and responsible beyond his years. Mason was 14, full of jokes and laughter that could light up any room. Logan was only 12, still my baby brother in every way that mattered, sensitive and kind with the biggest heart you've ever seen. Jennifer was devastated when Dad passed. She loved him with everything she had, and watching her grieve was like watching someone slowly fade away. 3 months after Dad's funeral, Jennifer died in her sleep. The doctor said it was heart failure, but I knew better. She died of a broken heart. In the span of 3 months, I went from being a college sophomore at Columbia University, with dreams of becoming a teacher, to being the sole guardian of 3 grieving boys. But I wasn't prepared for what came next. The day after Jennifer's funeral, Uncle Richard showed up at our house in Connecticut with his wife, Aunt Patricia, and their daughter, my cousin Stephanie. Uncle Richard was Dad's older brother, a man I'd never trusted even as a child. There was something in his eyes, a coldness that made me uncomfortable whenever he looked at our family's modest success. "Emma, honey," Aunt Patricia said with that fake sweetness, "we need to talk about the house and the boys' future." I was exhausted from grief and funeral arrangements, but something in their manner made me alert. "What do you mean?" Uncle Richard cleared his throat. "Well, your father didn't leave a will, and this house has a mortgage that needs to be paid. The boys need proper guardians, adults who can provide for them." "I can provide for them," I said firmly. "My father left this to us." "You're 20 years old, Emma," Stephanie interrupted with a smirk. "You can barely take care of yourself. Michael never discussed guardianship with us, but we're family. We'll take the boys, and you can visit whenever you want." My blood ran cold. "Take them? They're not going anywhere. We're staying together." Uncle Richard's mask slipped for just a moment, and I saw the calculation in his eyes. "Emma, be reasonable. You have no job, no savings. How are you going to feed 3 growing boys, pay for this house? They deserve stability." "We'll figure it out," I said, instinctively moving closer to my brothers who had been listening from the kitchen doorway. That's when Uncle David appeared, Dad's youngest brother, always the quiet one, lurking in the background. But there was something dangerous about his silence. He'd been going through Dad's papers while we talked. "There's no will," he announced. "No life insurance policy either. Just debts." I knew that was wrong. Dad was meticulous about finances, always talking about making sure we were protected. But when I asked to see the papers, Uncle Richard became aggressive. "We're trying to help you, Emma. Don't make this harder than it needs to be." The next morning, they came back with Mr. Thompson, a lawyer I'd never seen before. He had official-looking documents that supposedly proved Dad had died intestate, without a will. According to these papers, as the eldest surviving relatives, the uncles had the right to make decisions about the minor children. "This is wrong," I kept saying. "Dad had a will. He showed it to me last year." Mr. Thompson barely looked at me. "I'm sorry, Miss Williams, but there's no record of any will. The estate is essentially worthless, just debts and this mortgaged house. Within a week, they had legally removed my brothers from my custody. Within 2 weeks, they'd sold our family home for $300,000 to pay what they claimed were Dad's debts. I was given 3 days to pack up our belongings and find somewhere else to live. The night before we had to leave, I gathered Tyler, Mason, and Logan in what used to be our living room, now empty except for a few boxes. "Listen to me," I said, my voice steady despite the fear clawing at my chest. "I don't know what's happening or why, but I promise you this. We're going to be okay. I'm going to take care of you no matter what. Even if I have to skip meals, you boys will never go to bed hungry." Tyler, trying to be strong at 16, nodded. "We know, Emma. We trust you." Mason, who was usually the joker, was unusually quiet. "Are we really poor now?" "I don't have much money," I admitted. "But we have each other. That's what matters." Logan crawled into my lap, something he hadn't done in months. "I want Dad back." "I know, baby, I know. But Dad loved us, and wherever he is, he wants us to take care of each other. Can you help me do that?" He nodded against my shoulder, and I made a silent promise to my father's memory. I would not let his children suffer. Whatever it took, however long it took, I would keep us together. We moved into a basement apartment in Brooklyn that I found through a Craigslist ad. The rent was $200 a month, which seemed impossible on my part-time retail salary, but it was all I could afford. The apartment was damp, with low ceilings and one small window that barely let in any light. The landlord, Mrs. Rodriguez, was kind enough to let us move in with just a partial deposit when I explained our situation. The first night in that basement, I lay awake listening to my brothers breathe in their shared bedroom. I had exactly $423 in my checking account, 3 growing boys to feed, and no idea how I was going to make it work. But I was determined to try. I dropped out of Columbia University the next week and started working 3 jobs. Mornings, I cleaned offices in the financial district for $15 an hour. Afternoons, I worked at Mickey's Diner for $10 an hour plus tips. Evenings and weekends, I babysat for families on the Upper East Side who paid well and didn't ask too many questions about my situation. The boys had to change schools, transferring from their nice suburban district in Connecticut to overcrowded public schools in Brooklyn. I watched them struggle to adjust, saw how they tried not to complain about their new reality. Tyler stepped up in ways that broke my heart. He started doing the grocery shopping and cooking dinner when I worked late. He helped Mason and Logan with homework and made sure they did their chores. At 16, he was more responsible than most adults I knew. Mason used humor to cope, cracking jokes even when we were eating ramen noodles for the 4th night in a row. "Hey, Emma, you think if we eat enough of these, we'll turn into noodles ourselves? I could be Spaghetti Mason." Logan had the hardest time adjusting. He'd been the baby of the family, protected and pampered, and suddenly we were struggling to keep the lights on. He started having nightmares and would climb into my bed in the middle of the night, whispering, "Are we going to be okay, Emma?" "We're going to be just fine," I'd whisper back, even though I wasn't sure I believed it myself. By our 2nd year in the basement, I had developed a system that kept us afloat, barely. I worked approximately 75 hours a week, slept maybe 4 hours a night, and lived on coffee and determination. The boys were thriving despite our circumstances. Tyler maintained a 3.9 GPA, Mason made the basketball team, and Logan joined the school choir. But the stress was killing me. One particularly difficult night, I came home from my 3rd job to find the electricity had been shut off. I'd been late on the payment, and despite my pleading phone calls, the power company had cut us off. It was December, cold and dark, and I sat in my car outside our apartment building, crying until I couldn't breathe. I had exactly $31 in my account. Rent was due in 5 days. The boys needed winter coats. Logan had been coughing, and I was worried he needed to see a doctor, but we'd lost our health insurance when I dropped out of school. For the first time since this nightmare began, I considered calling Uncle Richard. Maybe they were right. Maybe the boys would be better off with adults who could actually provide for them. But then I remembered the way Uncle Richard had looked at our house, the calculation in his eyes, the speed with which they'd moved to get rid of me. Something wasn't right about the whole situation, and my instincts told me my brothers weren't safe with those people. I dried my tears, went inside, and lit every candle I could find. When the boys asked about the power, I turned it into an adventure. We're camping, indoor camping. Who wants to tell ghost stories? We huddled together on the couch under every blanket we owned. And for a few hours, it felt like we were a real family again. Mason told ridiculous jokes, Tyler read to us by candlelight, and Logan fell asleep in my lap. That night, after they were in bed, I started a journal. I wrote down everything I could remember about Dad's finances, about the meetings with the uncles and Mr. Thompson, about the strange speed with which our lives had been dismantled. I didn't know why I was documenting it all, but some instinct told me I might need this information someday. The boys and I developed our own traditions and inside jokes. Sunday mornings were pancake mornings. No matter how tight money was, I always made sure we had ingredients for pancakes. It was our one guaranteed luxury, and we made it special with whatever toppings we could afford. When Tyler turned 17, I couldn't afford a car or even a big party, but I saved up for months to buy him a nice watch from a pawn shop. Every Williams man needs a good watch, I told him, echoing something Dad used to say. Tyler cried when he opened it, not because it was expensive, but because he knew what it meant. He knew I'd sacrifice to get it for him. Emma, he said, you don't have to do things like this. We understand. You're my brother, I interrupted. You deserve nice things. You deserve everything. Mason's 16th birthday was different. He'd been talking about wanting to take a girl to the movies, but he was embarrassed that he didn't have money or decent clothes. I worked extra shifts for 2 weeks and bought him a nice shirt and took him shopping for cologne. You look so handsome, I told him as he got ready for his date. Dad would be so proud. Thanks, Mom, he said, then caught himself. Emma, sorry. It's okay, I said, though my throat closed up with emotion. It's okay. Logan was different from his brothers, artistic and sensitive with a beautiful singing voice. When he was 15, his choir teacher told me he had real talent and should consider voice lessons. I couldn't afford professional lessons, but I found a retired opera singer who taught out of her home and was willing to barter. I cleaned her house twice a week in exchange for Logan's lessons. The first time I heard him perform at a school concert, singing a solo that made the entire auditorium go silent, I cried right there in the audience. Mrs. Rodriguez, who had become like a grandmother to us, squeezed my hand. You raised good boys, she whispered. I'm trying, I whispered back. By the time I was 25, we'd been living in survival mode for 5 years. I was exhausted in ways that sleep couldn't fix, running on fumes and stubbornness alone. The boys were doing well. Tyler was a senior with college prospects. Mason was thriving on the basketball team, and Logan was winning singing competitions. But I was falling apart. I developed chronic migraines from stress and lack of sleep. I'd lost too much weight because I often gave my portions to the boys. I hadn't been on a date or had a social life since we moved to the basement. My entire existence revolved around work and keeping my brothers safe and fed. One night, I collapsed at the diner, just fell over while carrying a tray of food, and everything went black. I woke up in the emergency room with Mrs. Rodriguez holding my hand, and my 3 brothers looking terrified in the corner. You're exhausted, the doctor told me. Your body is shutting down. When's the last time you had a full night of sleep? A proper meal? I couldn't answer because I honestly couldn't remember. Emma, Tyler said when we got home, this has to stop. You're killing yourself. I'm fine, I insisted. But we all knew I wasn't. No, you're not, Mason said, and we can't lose you too. Logan, now 17 and almost as tall as me, put his arms around me. We'll figure out another way, but you have to take care of yourself too. That night, I had a breakdown that had been building for years. I sobbed until I couldn't breathe, mourning not just my parents, but the life I'd given up, the dreams I'd sacrificed, the youth I'd lost. My brothers held me while I cried, and for the first time since this all began, I let them take care of me. I'm scared, I admitted. I'm scared I'm not enough. I'm scared I'm failing you. Are you kidding? Tyler said. Emma, you saved us. You've given us everything. We're going to make it, Mason added. All of us together. And someday, Logan said, with the wisdom of someone much older, we're going to make sure you never have to worry about money again. It was Mason who first suggested that something wasn't right about Dad's estate. He was 18 by then, taking AP Economics, and had started asking questions about probate court for a school project. "Emma," he said one evening, "I've been reading about probate court. When someone dies without a will in New York, there are specific procedures, public notices, court filings. I can't find any record of Dad's estate going through probate. I looked up from the bills I was trying to figure out how to pay." "What do you mean?" "I mean, if Uncle Richard was really appointed as our guardian through the courts, there should be paperwork, public records, but there's nothing." Tyler was taking notes, his jaw set in determination. "That's not just unusual, that's fraud." "But how, and why?" I asked. "Money," Mason said simply. "It's always about money." "But what money?" I protested. "According to Uncle Richard, Dad died broke. The house was mortgaged. There were debts, no insurance, no savings. What could they possibly have gained by destroying 4 young people's lives?" I started digging deeper, using research skills I'd learned during my brief time at Columbia. I requested copies of the deed transfer for our house, employment records for Dad, anything I could get my hands on. What I discovered made my blood run cold. Dad's house had been sold for $300,000 to a development company, but the actual market value was $450,000. The supposed debts that necessitated the quick sale, I couldn't find records of most of them. The few legitimate debts Dad had were small: credit card balances, the mortgage payment, nothing that would require selling everything he owned. But the biggest shock came when I contacted Dad's former business partner. I'd always known Dad worked in tech, but I'd never understood exactly what he did. When I spoke to his former partner, Mr. Peterson, I learned that Dad hadn't just been an employee, he'd been a co-founder. "Emma," Mr. Peterson said over the phone, "Oh my God, I've been wondering what happened to you kids." "Mr. Peterson, I'm trying to understand Dad's business. What exactly did he do?" "Your father was brilliant, Emma. He developed the core algorithms that made Williams' digital solutions successful. We offered to buy him out when he got sick, but he said he wanted to leave his shares to his children. His partnership stake. He owned 60% of the company. The room spun around me. What happened to those shares when he passed away?" "His brothers came by with some lawyer, said they were handling his estate. They cashed out his shares, said it was to pay debts." "How much were his shares worth?" "At the time, around $4 million. I hung up the phone and immediately called my brothers. When I told them what I'd learned, the silence on the other end was deafening. "$4 million, Logan finally whispered. "They stole $4 million from us," Tyler said, his voice tight with anger. "And threw us into poverty while they took everything," Mason added. But that wasn't all. Over the next few weeks, I discovered more pieces of the puzzle. Dad had indeed had a life insurance policy, a large one worth $2 million. He'd also had savings accounts, investment accounts, even a small real estate portfolio I'd never known about. Everything had been liquidated immediately after his death, with Uncle Richard signing as the supposed executor of the estate. The total amount they'd stolen from us? Nearly $8 million. Finding honest legal help when you're poor is nearly impossible, but I was determined. I contacted every civil rights organization, every legal aid society, every pro bono program I could find. Most turned me away. The case was too complex, too expensive, too old. Finally, I found Lisa Chen, a young lawyer who had just started her own practice and was willing to take the case on contingency. She was passionate about justice and had the resources to investigate thoroughly. "This is one of the most elaborate estate frauds I've ever seen," she told me after reviewing the evidence I'd gathered. "But we need more proof. We need to find the real will." That's when she suggested we investigate Mr. Thompson, the lawyer who had supposedly handled Dad's estate. What we discovered was that Mr. Thompson had been disbarred 2 years after Dad's death for financial misconduct. Lisa tracked him down to a small town upstate where he was working at a used car lot and drinking away his guilt. At first, he refused to talk to us, but when Lisa threatened to expose his role in the fraud, he finally broke down. "They paid me $75,000, he sobbed. $75,000 to destroy some documents and forge others. I was in debt, about to lose my practice anyway. They said it was just paperwork, that the kids would be better off with proper guardians." "What documents did you destroy?" Lisa demanded. "The will. Michael's real will and trust documents. There was a trust, a big one, set up for the children, but it had conditions. The boys had to graduate high school, and Emma had to turn 25 before any of it could be accessed. My heart stopped. How much was in the trust? Mr. Thompson looked at me with haunted eyes. When I destroyed the documents, it was worth about $85 million. With compound interest over the past 7 years, it's probably worth over $120 million now. $120 million, where is it now? Lisa asked. Still there, still growing. The bank that holds the trust doesn't know the will was destroyed. They're still waiting for the conditions to be met. Armed with Mr. Thompson's confession and mountains of evidence, Lisa filed a lawsuit that made the local news. Local family discovers they're heirs to a $120 million fortune after years of poverty, the headline read. Within days of the story breaking, my phone was ringing nonstop. Uncle Richard, Uncle David, Aunt Patricia, they all wanted to talk. They were concerned about the misunderstanding. They wanted to work something out. I refused to speak to any of them without Lisa present. The first family meeting in 7 years took place in Lisa's conference room. Uncle Richard walked in looking older and more desperate than I remembered. Aunt Patricia was clearly nervous, fidgeting with her purse and avoiding eye contact. Uncle David maintained his silent, dangerous demeanor. Emma, honey, I think there's been a terrible misunderstanding, Uncle Richard began. The only misunderstanding, Lisa interrupted, is your clients thinking they could get away with this fraud indefinitely. We were trying to protect the children, Aunt Patricia insisted. Emma was too young, too inexperienced. Too young to have her own inheritance? Too inexperienced to raise her own brothers? Tyler said. He'd insisted on being present along with Mason and Logan. They deserved to face the people who had stolen their childhoods. Uncle Richard's mask began to slip. You kids don't understand the complexities. We understand theft, Mason interrupted. We understand fraud. We understand that you watched us struggle for 7 years while you lived off our money. That money would have been wasted on a 20-year-old girl, Stephanie spoke up for the first time. She was 30 now, married with a mortgage and car payments. At least we invested it properly. Invested it in your lifestyle, you mean, Logan said quietly. His voice had gotten deeper over the years, and there was steel in it now. The mediation failed within 2 hours. What followed was the most vicious legal battle I could have imagined. Uncle Richard hired expensive lawyers who tried to claim I was an unfit guardian, that the boys would have been better off with them, that any supposed inheritance was tied up in legal complexities beyond my understanding. They filed countersuits claiming I was trying to extort them. They spread rumors in our old neighborhood that I was making up stories for money. They even tried to get my brothers to testify against me, offering them cars and college tuition if they would just admit they had been better off without me. Tyler, Mason, and Logan didn't even dignify the offers with responses. But the uncles weren't done. Uncle David, the quiet one, turned out to be the most dangerous. He started following me, showing up at my jobs, making veiled threats about what happened to people who caused trouble for family. One night, I came home from work to find my apartment had been broken into. Nothing was stolen, but my documents were scattered. My computer was damaged, and a note was left on my pillow. Some secrets should stay buried. I called the police, but there was no proof of who had done it. Lisa advised me to be careful, to vary my routines, to never be alone if possible. The stress was overwhelming, but this time I wasn't facing it alone. My brothers, now grown men, rallied around me. Tyler had graduated high school and gotten into Columbia on an academic scholarship. Mason had received a basketball scholarship to Syracuse. Logan was a senior with a full scholarship to Berklee College of Music. They could have walked away, started their new lives, left the legal battle behind. Instead, they stood with me. You sacrificed everything for us, Tyler told me. Now it's our turn. The trial began on a cold February morning. The courthouse was packed with reporters, family members, and curious onlookers who had followed the story in the news. I sat at the plaintiff's table, wearing a suit Lisa had helped me pick out, my 3 brothers behind me in the front row. Across the aisle, Uncle Richard, Uncle David, and Aunt Patricia sat with their high-powered legal team, looking confident and entitled. Lisa's opening statement was devastating. She laid out the timeline of fraud with precision, using documents, bank records, and witness testimony to paint a picture of calculated greed and family betrayal. The defendants didn't just steal money, she told the jury. They stole childhoods. They condemned 4 orphan children to years of poverty and struggle while they lived comfortably off the victim's inheritance. The defense tried to claim that they had acted in good faith, that the legal situation had been complex, that they had genuinely believed they were protecting the children's interests. But then Lisa called Mr. Thompson to the stand. The disgraced lawyer was clearly nervous, sweating despite the cool courtroom air. Under oath, he detailed exactly how he had been paid to destroy Dad's real will and forged documents that made it appear Dad had died without an estate plan. They told me it was for the children's own good, he testified. But I knew I was committing fraud. I've regretted it every day since. When Lisa asked him to identify the people who had paid him, he pointed directly at Uncle Richard and Uncle David. The defense cross-examination was brutal, but Mr. Thompson held to his story. The damage was done. Over the next week, Lisa systematically destroyed the uncle's claims. She called Dad's former business partner, who testified about the $4 million that had been fraudulently claimed. She presented bank records showing how the money had been divided among the 3 couples and spent on houses, cars, vacations, and investments. She showed the jury photographs of our basement apartment contrasted with pictures of the uncle's new homes. She presented my work records, showing how I had worked 3 jobs to keep us afloat while they lived in luxury. But the most powerful testimony came from my brothers. Tyler took the stand first, composed and articulate. He described our years of struggle, the sacrifices I had made, the way I had held our family together through pure determination. My sister was 20 years old when she became responsible for 3 grieving boys, he told the jury. She could have given up. She could have let the state take us. Instead, she gave up her own dreams to make sure we had a chance at ours. Mason was next, bringing his natural charisma to bear on the jury. He made them laugh with stories of our pancake Sundays and indoor camping adventures, then made them angry as he described watching me work myself to exhaustion. I used to wonder why God let our parents die, he said. But I think I know now. He knew we needed Emma to raise us. He knew she would love us enough to sacrifice everything. Logan's testimony was the most emotional. By now 19 and preparing for his music career, he spoke with the poised confidence of a performer, but his voice broke when he talked about our struggles. There were nights I heard her crying, he said. She thought we were asleep, but I heard her. She cried because she was tired, because she was scared, because she didn't know how she was going to pay rent. But the next morning, she'd get up and make us breakfast and tell us everything was going to be okay. And because she believed it, we believed it too. When the defense attorney tried to suggest that the boys might have been better off with proper adult supervision, Logan's response silenced the courtroom. Emma didn't just supervise us, she loved us. She sacrificed her youth, her education, her social life, her health, everything, to make sure we had what we needed. What we needed wasn't money or a big house. What we needed was someone who would never give up on us, someone who would keep every promise she made. That's what Emma gave us. The defense's case fell apart quickly. They tried to argue that they had acted with good intentions, but the evidence of their lavish spending while we lived in poverty made their claims seem hollow. Uncle Richard took the stand in his own defense, maintaining that he had genuinely believed he was protecting us. But under cross-examination, Lisa exposed his lies with surgical precision. Mr. Williams, you testified that you were concerned about Emma's ability to provide for the boys. Were you also concerned about her ability to access a $120 million trust fund? That's not. We didn't know about any trust fund. But you destroyed the will that established that trust fund, didn't you? No, I never. You paid Mr. Thompson $75,000 to destroy documents. Are you telling this court you didn't know what those documents contained? The longer he was on the stand, the more his story unraveled. By the time Lisa was finished with him, it was clear to everyone in the courtroom that he knew exactly what he was doing. Aunt Patricia was next, and she broke down completely under questioning. She admitted that they had known about Dad's assets, admitted that they had deliberately hidden them from us, admitted that they had spent years living off money that belonged to orphan children. Uncle David refused to testify, which Lisa used to devastating effect in her closing argument. David Williams won't take the stand because he knows there's no excuse for what they did. There's no justification for stealing from children. There's no defense for condemning 4 orphans to poverty while you live in luxury off their inheritance. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours. When they returned, the foreman stood and delivered a verdict that would change our lives forever. In the matter of Williams versus Williams, we find for the plaintiffs on all counts. The judge's ruling was even more satisfying. Not only did he order the immediate release of the trust fund, but he also imposed additional damages for pain and suffering, legal fees, and punitive damages designed to punish the defendants for their particularly egregious conduct. But the real victory came when the judge read aloud a letter that had been found in Dad's safety deposit box. A letter he had written to us, to be opened only if something happened to him. "My dearest children," the judge read, "if you are hearing this, then I am no longer with you, and I am so sorry. I want you to know that everything I worked for, everything I built, was for you. The trust I have established will ensure that you never want for anything. But more importantly, I pray that you will always have each other. Emma, my brave girl, I know the responsibility will fall on your shoulders. You are stronger than you know, and I trust you to keep our family together. Take care of your brothers, but don't forget to take care of yourself too. Tyler, you have my sense of responsibility and your mother's wisdom. Use both to help guide your family. Mason, you have the gift of joy. Never lose your laughter, even in dark times. Your family will need your light. Logan, you have your mother's gentle heart and my determination. Follow your dreams, but never forget where you come from. I have left you enough money to live comfortably, but more than that, I have tried to give you the values that will make you good people. Love each other, support each other, forgive each other's mistakes. Be the family I always dreamed you would be. All my love, always, Dad." There wasn't a dry eye in the courtroom. The legal victory was just the beginning of the justice we received. Over the next year, karma caught up with each of our tormentors in ways that were both satisfying and sobering. Uncle Richard lost his job when his employer learned about the fraud case. His wife left him, taking their daughter and half of their assets in the divorce. The house he'd bought with our stolen money went into foreclosure, and he was forced to move in with relatives who wanted nothing to do with him. Aunt Patricia developed severe anxiety and depression, unable to cope with the public shame and legal consequences. She lost most of her friends and found herself isolated and bitter. Uncle David faced criminal charges for fraud and intimidation. He was sentenced to 6 years in prison, where his quiet, dangerous demeanor made him no friends. The man who thought he could intimidate a young woman into silence found himself powerless behind bars. Stephanie lost her job as a marketing coordinator when her company learned about her family's crimes. Her husband left her, disgusted by her participation in stealing from orphan children. She was forced to move back in with her disgraced father, two bitter people feeding off each other's resentment. But the most poetic justice came when the IRS launched an investigation into their unreported income. The money they had stolen and spent so freely became a tax nightmare that would haunt them for years. I didn't celebrate their downfall, but I won't lie. There was a deep satisfaction in watching the people who had tried to destroy us face the consequences of their choices. The trust fund, now worth $127 million with accumulated interest, was released to us in stages. As the oldest, I received immediate access to enough money to secure our futures, with the rest held until my brothers reached 25. The first thing I did was buy us a house. Not a mansion, but a beautiful 5-bedroom home in Westchester County with a big kitchen and a backyard where we could finally breathe. After 7 years in that basement apartment, having space and light felt like a miracle. Tyler transferred to a better school to finish his engineering degree. Mason was able to focus on basketball without worrying about money. Logan continued his music studies, now able to afford the best teachers and equipment. But money, we learned, couldn't erase the habits of survival we'd developed. For months, we all hoarded food, kept our lights on all night, and checked our bank account balances obsessively. It took time to believe that our security was real. The media attention was overwhelming at first. Everyone wanted to interview the Cinderella family, as one newspaper called us. We were invited on talk shows, offered book deals, approached by movie producers. We turned most of it down. Our story belonged to us, and we weren't ready to share it with the world. Not yet. With financial security came the freedom to pursue our dreams without desperation driving us. Tyler graduated summa cum laude, with degrees in engineering and business. He started his own consulting firm, specializing in tech solutions and digital infrastructure. carrying on Dad's legacy in a way that would have made him proud. By the time he was 28, his company had offices in 3 states. Mason finished college and was drafted by a minor league basketball team. But a knee injury ended his playing career early. Instead of being devastated, he channeled his passion into coaching and sports management. He started a youth basketball program in Brooklyn, giving kids the opportunities he dreamed of during our hardest years. Logan's music career took off like a rocket. His first album, titled Basement Dreams, was a tribute to our journey and became a huge success. He won 2 Grammy Awards before his 25th birthday and used his platform to advocate for foster children and families in poverty. As for me, I discovered I had a talent for business and investment. I started small, buying and renovating properties in struggling neighborhoods, then expanded into restaurants, retail, and technology startups. By 30, I had built my own business empire worth hundreds of millions of dollars. But our greatest success was that we stayed together through everything: the money, the fame, the opportunities that could have pulled us in different directions. We remained a family. When Tyler got married at 28, he asked me to walk him down the aisle. "You've been more than a sister," he told me. "You've been our mother, our father, our protector. You gave up everything to raise us. Let me honor that." I cried through the entire ceremony, watching my little brother marry a wonderful woman who understood and respected our unusual family dynamic. Mason's wedding 2 years later was a celebration that would have made Dad proud. He married his college sweetheart in a ceremony that filled an entire church with laughter and joy. When he thanked me in his speech, calling me the best mother a man could ask for, there wasn't a dry eye in the house. Logan's wedding was the most beautiful of all, a musical celebration where he serenaded his bride with a song he'd written about finding love after loss. I walked him down the aisle too, my baby brother now a successful man who still called me when he needed advice. At each wedding, my brothers publicly thanked me for the sacrifices I'd made, for the promises I'd kept, for the love that had held our family together through the darkest times. For years, I was so focused on my brothers and building our new life that I didn't think about romance. I convinced myself that I was too busy, too independent, too set in my ways to need anyone else. Then I met David. He was an architect working on one of my commercial properties, and he had no idea who I was when we first met. To him, I was just another client, and I loved the normalcy of that. He was kind, funny, hardworking, and completely unimpressed by wealth or status. Our first date was to a diner not unlike Mickey's Kitchen, where I'd once worked. When I told him I loved the simplicity of it, he laughed and said, "Good, because I'm not trying to impress you with money. I'm trying to impress you with my sparkling personality." He did impress me, with his integrity, his passion for his work, and his genuine interest in who I was as a person, not what I had accomplished or accumulated. When I finally told him my story, he listened without judgment or pity. "You're the strongest person I've ever met," he said simply, "and the most loving. Your brothers are lucky to have you." "I'm lucky to have them," I corrected. "You're both lucky to have each other," he said. "That's what real family looks like." We married in a small ceremony with my brothers as the wedding party and Mrs. Rodriguez, our old landlord who had become like a grandmother to us, giving me away. It was perfect in its simplicity. David and I had 3 children, twin girls, Grace and Hope, and a son we named Michael after my father. My brother's children call me Aunt Emma, but they also know the story of how I raised their fathers. They understand that our family is built on sacrifice, love, and unbreakable bonds. Every Sunday, we still have pancake mornings, now in my spacious kitchen with 3 families gathered around a table that seats 20. The children laugh at stories of their fathers eating ramen noodles for weeks at a time, and we make sure they understand how blessed they are. But we also make sure they understand the value of hard work, of taking care of each other, of keeping promises, even when it's difficult. Tyler's daughter Sarah, named after my mother, is studying to be a teacher. Mason's son Michael plays basketball like his father, but wants to be a doctor. Logan's twin boys are musically gifted like their father, but grounded in the values we taught them. They are the 4th generation of Williams' children, raised with love and security, but they know their family story. They know that their comfortable lives were built on the sacrifices of a 20-year-old girl who refused to let her family be broken. Success gave us the resources to help others, and we've never forgotten where we came from. Together, my brothers and I established the Michael Williams Foundation, not to end our story, but as a living tribute to our father and the values he instilled in us. The foundation provides emergency assistance to families facing sudden hardship, scholarships for students who age out of foster care, and support for siblings trying to stay together in the system. We've helped hundreds of families avoid the separation and poverty we experienced. Every grant we approve, every family we help stay together, feels like a victory against the forces that tried to break us. I also started a mentorship program for young women who find themselves responsible for siblings or other family members. I teach them practical skills: how to budget, how to navigate legal systems, how to find resources. But more importantly, I try to give them what I wish I'd had: someone who understood the weight they were carrying. You're not alone, I tell each young woman I meet. What you're doing is hard, but it's also heroic, and you're stronger than you know. Now, at 32, I look back on our journey with a mixture of pain and pride. The years of struggle were brutal, but they forged us into people we might never have become otherwise. Tyler is one of the most successful young entrepreneurs on the East Coast, but he's also humble, generous, and devoted to family. The responsibility he shouldered as a teenager taught him to lead with both strength and compassion. Mason's natural charisma could have made him arrogant, but his years of making light of our hardships taught him to use humor to heal rather than harm. He's become a leader in youth sports, changing lives through basketball and mentorship. Logan's artistic gifts were refined by suffering into something truly transcendent. His music speaks to people who have known loss and struggle, offering hope and healing in equal measure. As for me, I learned that love is the strongest force in the universe. Love made me work 3 jobs without complaint. Love gave me the strength to fight for what was right. Love held our family together when everything else fell apart. The money we eventually received was life-changing, but it wasn't what saved us. We saved each other. Last year, on the 10th anniversary of winning our court case, I received an unexpected letter. It was from Uncle Richard, written from the small apartment where he now lives alone. "Emma," it read, "I know I have no right to contact you, and I don't expect forgiveness, but I need you to know that I think about what we did every day. We were jealous of Michael's success, resentful that he seemed to have everything while we struggled. When he died, we saw an opportunity to take what we felt he owed us. We told ourselves we were protecting you children from making mistakes with money you were too young to handle, but the truth is, we were just greedy and bitter. We justified stealing from orphans because we wanted what your father had built. Watching what you became, how you raised those boys, the success you've all achieved, it's made me realize what a monster I was. You were a better parent at 20 than I ever was as an adult. Your father would be so proud of the woman you became and the men you raised. I don't ask for forgiveness because I don't deserve it. I just wanted you to know that justice was served. And it was right. You deserved better from your family, and I'm sorry we failed you so completely. Your uncle, Richard." I showed the letter to my brothers, and we talked about it for hours. There was still anger there, but also something like pity. Richard had destroyed his own life through greed and jealousy, losing everything that mattered while we had gained everything that counted. I wrote him back, not to forgive, but to close the circle. "Uncle Richard," I wrote, "I appreciate your honesty. What you did was unforgivable, but I've learned that carrying anger only hurts the person holding it. I don't forgive you for what you took from us, but I don't hate you anymore either. You were wrong about one thing, though. Dad didn't owe you or anyone else his success. He earned it through hard work and sacrifice. The only thing any of us owe each other is basic human decency, and you failed that test completely. But your letter tells me you understand that now. I hope you find peace in whatever years you have left, Emma." I never heard from him again. Today, I sit in my office overlooking Manhattan, watching the city bustle below. My companies employ over 1,000 people. My brothers have built their own successful enterprises. Our children are happy and healthy, growing up with advantages we never had, but also with the values we learned in that basement apartment. People often ask me if I regret the years of struggle, if I wish things had been different. The honest answer is complicated. I regret that my brothers had to see their sister work herself to exhaustion. I regret that we missed out on normal teenage experiences. I regret the stress, the fear, the nights I lay awake wondering if I was failing them. But I don't regret becoming the person those struggles made me. I don't regret the bond those hardships forged between my brothers and me. I don't regret learning that we could survive anything as long as we had each other. The money was nice to get, but it wasn't what made us rich. We were rich the moment we decided to face our challenges together. We were rich every Sunday morning when we gathered for pancakes. We were rich in the love that held us together through everything. Yesterday, Logan called me from Los Angeles, where he was recording his 5th album. "Emma," he said, "I was in the studio thinking about those old days, and I realized something. Do you remember what you told us that last night in our old house? You said we were going to be okay, that you'd take care of us no matter what." "I remember," I said. "You kept that promise, every single part of it. Even when it seemed impossible, even when you were breaking under the weight of it, you kept us safe, you kept us together, you kept us okay." "We kept each other okay," I corrected gently. "Maybe," he said, "but it started with you. It started with a 20-year-old girl who refused to let her family be broken. And look at us now. We're all successful, we're all happy, we all have families of our own. But more than that, we're still brothers. We still love each other. We're still okay." After we hung up, I thought about Dad's letter, the one the judge had read in court all those years ago. He had asked me to keep our family together, and I had. He had asked me to take care of my brothers, and I had. But he had also asked me not to forget to take care of myself. And eventually, with their love and support, I had learned to do that too. The girl who made those promises in an empty living room, surrounded by boxes and uncertainty, had no idea what the future held. She couldn't have imagined the wealth, the success, the happiness that waited on the other side of all that struggle. But she knew one thing with absolute certainty. She would never break a promise to the people she loved. And she never did. This is my story, our story. It's a story of love triumphing over greed, of family bonds stronger than any force that tried to break them, and of promises kept against impossible odds. It's the story of 4 orphan children who refused to be destroyed by the people who should have protected them. We didn't just survive, we thrived. And every day we wake up grateful for the journey that brought us here, even the dark parts, because they taught us who we really are. We are the Williams family. We are unbreakable. And we are living proof that love, in the end, always wins. This story is dedicated to every young person who has had to grow up too fast, to every family that has chosen love over bitterness, and to everyone who believes that our greatest inheritance is not what we receive, but what we give to the next generation. Before you go, please don't forget to subscribe to this channel, like this video, and share it with your loved ones. We post videos every single day on this channel, so make sure to check out our other stories too. Don't forget to comment your thoughts and what state you're watching from. We love hearing from you. We'll see you in the next story.